Hello there folks, this is Ferenc on board again with another video, this time on, well, I decided to speak a bit about the so-called dreaded coronavirus. It's been something that I've been seeing all around me well, I don't watch the news much, but you don't have to watch the news because people will most likely speak about each and every possible threatening thing that exists, from the smallest things to the greatest things, like the indomitable earthquake that's probably never going to happen, and floods and all sorts of like things that could lead to the end of humanity. For some reason people seem to enjoy diving into this almost fetish of thinking how things could go bad and things can go wrong, and how humanity can actually come up to the, well, doomsday. So the point with this coronavirus is, well, I don't believe anything that I see and hear at the news. And the point is, if we take it spiritually, and well, not call it spiritually only, the problem is that, well, this is just another way to distract people from the inner work that they should be doing, and from the introspection that they could do to see or dive more into the fact that, well, they are just entities who came here, like facets of a greater consciousness who came here to just experience. I'm not saying that the apparition of this virus is something bad, probably is not something good either, but I do not believe in good and bad. These are just concepts that the mind requires in order to function in this, let's call it a universe of duality, because this is kind of what it is. Now, the point is that such viruses don't just appear like out of a sudden. Sure, all viruses and bacteria and the such suffer mutations, especially thinking how much radiation we're putting out through all our devices, but the point is that no one actually takes this from the standpoint of an individual. When you speak about viruses, they are like 1,000 times smaller than a bacteria, usually, and a bacteria is around 1,000 times smaller than a cell. So keeping track of a virus is kind of tricky enough, unless you're doing it in a controlled environment, like for example in some kind of laboratory. Now, there are laboratories in the world that keep up with the viruses that appear, and they make sure that they know beforehand what environments such mutations can actually survive in, and what environments these, let's say, malignant forces will struggle with. Now, the point is, many people will ask, well, if there are such laboratories, why aren't vaccines put out so easily, so fast? Well, because when you have a virus in a tank, let's say, or let's say in a mini universe that replicates different possible environments for that, well, it's kind of hard to replicate it onto people. And the point is, just because, let's say, you have viruses and you put them in some people to test how their body reacts, and then you build against the clock some vaccines to cure those, just because you cured a few people, it doesn't mean you will cure a large, like wide scale population, because population has a lot of problems, and each problem they have will weaken a certain part of their body, because we are just not this physical manifestation of ourselves only. It is indeed true that many people actually end up identifying themselves with the body they live in, and it's not necessarily something bad, but they kind of end up with the idea that that's it, like there's nothing beyond that. If we go like deep down the rabbit hole, just as I actually and will always love doing so, well, we can find out that this little virus that appeared is, well, what if it is just a karmic debt that we as a race have to pay for, I don't know, much of the negativity that we have impregnated into this world. And if we take spiritual aspects into account, that each and every one of us kind of has their destiny preordained, like decided before. Like we can consider this just like in video games. We all love video games more or less, but some people love them a lot and they are capable of doing a lot of things in those games. And before doing that, it's like, I'm gonna get into this game and I'm gonna do this, probably this and that, and they'll fantasize about what they will be doing in their own game or games. And the idea is that, well, by the time they get into the game, it's like they kind of die in reality because their perception will be aligned with that game. So it's like they project themselves in the game. It's like reborning yourself there, and when you log out, you kind of die in that game because, all the data referring your character are simply destroyed. Your characters and, well, the characters that you play with uh, will be born when you log into the game because your account, your client, will kick into function all the methods, all the classes and everything it has so that the world of the game actually exists. As you play, your character will perform whatever it was programmed to do, just like you will perform like whatever you are programmed to do in this life. And when you quit the game, many people say that, hey, my characters are still there, they're gonna wait me. But those are not your characters. I mean, sure, they belong to the artist, but I'm not talking about this. Those characters of yours are only a projection of your characters. Your characters are alive only in the game files. When you kickstart your own game, the idea is that those characters of yours kind of fall asleep, and a projection of them is injected into your visual side, let's say, of the computer. The computer will process whatever things necessary. In a way, it will put those characters to life, but theoretically they are asleep in the game files. The coming to life will occur through the code that is behind them and the programs that put that code into a language that the computer can understand. And as the computer unfolds that through what I call the imagination, machine imagination, which is basically video games, as it unfolds, you will actually play with a facet of your own characters. It is just a projection of your characters, they're not real characters. And when you turn off the client, let's say, those projections will simply dissipate because all the data regarding it will be destroyed. They will be returned to the state of zero, which is the state of balance. It's not a state of unbeing, but it is the state of readiness. Because zero means not, it does not exist. It doesn't mean this. Zero means it is ready and it is compatible with everything that can exist. It is kind of mind-boggling if you stay and think about it, but the point is that zero does not mean inexistence. It just means compatibility with whatever can exist. Just like when your mind is fucked up and you keep thinking about all the fears and the such, your mind will actually, like only focus on those things. And point be said, you cannot concentrate on other things. So basically your mind is not a zero. When you calm your mind, when you still your mind and let your thoughts just flow through you, well then, that is when you theoretically have your mind set as zero. Because there is no thought, there is no pattern in your mind that has settled within your mind. You have become just an observer of the thoughts that go through your mind. You're making the first steps at realizing that, hey, you know what, beyond what you think it's you, actually your thoughts are not you in like 70-80% of the cases, but you're capable and you're starting to find out that the thoughts that you are having aren't necessarily yours. And that's the same with fears. Fear is more or less an acronym, which stands for false evidence appearing real. When such things actually appear, your mind actually fools itself that something exists, but it doesn't. It's a projection of a belief. So a belief is like a little virus that enters your system and it starts pumping up a certain code. This code is somewhat, let's not call it malicious because there's a lesson beyond each. There is nothing bad and nothing good, and if you think in things being good and or bad, well, you're thinking and you're taking life as if it's happening to you, instead of thinking that, hey, life actually happens for you. Everything here happens so that you experience it, and as you experience it, you will actually understand more and more about yourself. Such small things like a little new virus is just a little distraction. It's one of the distractions that will always come in this world because it's the point of the game. You are a being wakening up to your own potential, but everything around is just a game. The game is all about the little challenges. There is no such thing as a game like, let's take Mario for example. Usually it's like directional, like unidirectional. You can go in the same rightwards way like all the time, but you just don't go like that. You also have to hop over things, there are obstacles, and there are all sorts of ideas. Just like when you have a dream. Everyone believes that, hey, I have this dream, I will put it into reality, and many of the ones who will actually work towards that dream believe that that will be just a linear direction ahead. But, there's also a picture about that with people believing that from point A to point B, meaning from a dream's beginning to its blooming into reality, there's just a bike stroll or something like that, when you actually have to go a very, very long road, you actually have to climb some mountains, you have to go over some rough seas, and so on and so forth. So the coronavirus is, well, not much to say. It's just another virus. There are all sorts of laboratories in the world that take care of such viruses and either create them for different purposes or, they just keep up with the world's plagues. There are people who take care of new versions of viruses and such possible diseases that are incubated in different environments, so that if a certain situation like that in the laboratory exists, a very, very fast vaccine can actually be created. Because keeping track of a virus is, well, it's very hard. Like, what it actually means, well, if people actually get sick with a virus, why don't they get sent to such a laboratory? Well, they get to a hospital and some of the samples taken from them are sent to such laboratories. But a sample, even from 1,000 people, these samples are not enough, because medicine is something that you do not apply as a whole. It is applicable for individual, because each person has their own body, and each body has their own aspects, has their own level of pollution. Each person has their own spiritual negativity and positivity, let's say, impregnated into those. Now the point is that the virus will also mutate according to each person's body's defenses. So if you bring in 1,000 samples, chances are that a virus will have, like, most of its individuals kind of removed. Many of the defenses will usually remove most of the invaders. However, there are also the stronger ones, those who either become a bit paralyzed, but they're so small they're not necessarily easily detectable, or for whatever reason they will escape and they might actually recuperate. When a virus or a bacteria is besieged by things that attack them and should destroy them, they enter a defensive state in which they build a shield around them, and the shield may actually withstand that flood, let's say, of removals, okay, of virus or bacteria removal. So the point is, they will enter this state of latency. The problem is, with some viruses, this latency can actually be a very short period. So that is why a virus, if you wipe out the so-called disease, it can actually rapidly come back. Well, this also can happen, and let's face it, it's not only the coronavirus. I mean, if we catch the flu, chances are, if you don't treat yourself, the body can actually beat the crap out of the flu. However, if you still keep not taking care of yourself, guess what? The flu can actually come back. So it's also a matter of how much you take care of yourself. Now, from not taking care of yourself to a wide scale, hysteria phenomenon, well, it's not much of a problem, it's not much of a different route, because people don't have too much of a belief in themselves. And if they don't believe in themselves, they will believe in other sources from the outside, and most likely they will keep running from themselves, and they will keep tuning into the outside. And the outside is full of these distractions, of these aspects that will just keep you not necessarily lower vibrational, but will just prove you how easily you are controllable. What I see this new virus is, well, a way to control the international economy in a way. Many people say that the marketplaces have crashed, but just looking a bit at the dollar and the euros, they have actually increased. Why so? Well, I just can't blame this, like it has been an increase in the dollar and the euro just because people have suddenly started, like uh, ordering thousands, if not billions, of those face masks that people don't understand how they work. Many people believe that if you put a face mask on your face, because it's a face mask, and you walk down the street, you're finally safe from any and all possible viruses. But people don't know, and their mindset of poverty will just have them use the same mask, most likely day in and day out for the rest of their lives. It doesn't work like that. Such a mask usually is available for like 2 or 3 or 4 hours depending on your environment. If in your environment you have stronger winds and a lot of humidity, you're probably gonna have to ditch that mask like 1 hour later, because that mask also acts as a place where the viruses can, and I'm not speaking about coronaviruses necessarily, but any bacteria and viruses that they naturally are in the environment, because the environment is filled with these, and one person's body actually beats like even hundreds of such small incubations per day. Let's not also speak about even 1,000 precancerous formations in the body like each and every day. This is something that most people don't know, but it's one of the silent things their bodies are actually doing. So the point is that there are a lot of things that can actually happen, and the environment is already crawling with all sorts of microorganisms, not necessarily bacteria and viruses. There are more types of such microorganisms, because if you believe that the air is empty, well then we don't live in the same reality, and that's for sure. Now the point is that so many of those can actually, you know end up on your face mask, and that face mask is, it's actually a very good area for them to develop more, because if winds keep blowing against you, they will store some humidity at lower levels, and in that humidity there's already a lot of microorganisms, because usually they travel with humidity. So the point is, as they get more and more on that mask, you'll also start breathing them in. It's just like a filter. If the filter gets full, well, things don't necessarily get in, but things can actually also slip in because the filter might actually start failing. So that is why you change the filter. But if you change a filter, people change a filter at home because they are afraid of what might break in their house, or they are afraid again for some reason about their health, even if they don't kind of care about themselves, but they are afraid of the bills that a hospital can actually charge them if they become ill, or of the diseases that they can actually contact from a hospital if they end up in there, in, well, let's say some of the uh, you know poorer countries at least. So the virus itself, like the coronavirus, has many ways to actually come into a body. I don't know specifically how the coronavirus can enter the body, but many microorganisms actually enter through the skin. It's actually a small percentage of them, but some are actually capable to withstand the acidic levels of the skin, and they can actually pierce the skin and enter the bloodstream. There are all such situations each and every day, like probably tens of them, hundreds of them, probably even thousands, and the body does such a good job at kicking the ass of these intruders that we most likely don't even realize. So the point is that a virus is a serious threat indeed. It's not something to be, taken lightly. However, the point is that the only thing you can actually do, like anyone can actually do, even with the coronavirus, is to actually start taking more care of yourself. Viruses and physical diseases theoretically can happen for spiritual purposes, like having some karmic debt to pay. What if the people that have died of this virus actually chose to die of this virus in this specific universe? It's just like the gamer that wants to try a specific combo or a specific thing in their video game, and they get born into their video game while they play it, and when they quit the game, it's like they die in that video game and are reborn in here. It's like they fall asleep because their awareness of this world will diminish so much that it's like they have fallen asleep. It's just like this. Higher vibrational beings belonging to higher dimensions do not know anything about this world and how it works. They might actually witness it, but it's like reading a book in a different language. So you don't understand much about what it's written in there. You probably understand the pictures or somewhere around that, but you don't understand the whole meaning. So the point is that you will actually have to start, working towards this. So you will have to start a long journey to actually get yourself born in here. And astrology is said to be the art that reveals you what you have chosen to experience in this world. There are a few video games who actually have such intricate mechanics in a certain way, not necessarily in an astrological way, but everything happens for a reason. So the reason that people are dying from the coronavirus is, it has a lot of reasons beyond the physical, beyond the mind, beyond whatever we can perceive. There is always a set of larger pictures that people will most likely miss. Karmic debts or whatever, there are always reasons. It's not just because some ill-minded people want to destroy humanity with a virus. It's not how you do it if you want to destroy humanity. And also building a virus in laboratory is something that can take years, because it's not hard to mutate a virus. It's hard to make it and keep testing it to see how much it actually resists in this environment, in that environment, and it has to be constantly surveyed, and it has to be constantly switched from one environment to another to see how it reacts, how it can immunize itself, and how different organisms will react to it, because you will need a carrier. You will need something that will carry it, be it that there are insects or whatever. If you want to spread the virus, it's not that hard. You can actually send some, bottles instead. Like if you have, you contact a company, or you actually take control of a company that delivers, let's say, pesticides. And pesticides will usually influence plants. But the point is, in those bottles or whatever containers of pesticides, it's like 1% of those containers are actually the environment of your virus. So instead of pesticides, and also your virus will be immune to those pesticides, 1% of those things is, or let's say 5% or 10%, are just the environments for your virus, which will be spread in different environments of the world. In at least one of the environments it may actually survive, because it will stick itself to plants, and insects love humidity, and insects are very good carriers. It's one of the ways you can actually, spread this. Other ways you can actually spread it by, spraying many of the plants that, people get in contact with. Or, if you want to be like locally deceptive and evil, you can actually throw your virus's environment along with the virus in, I don't know, probably the ventilation systems of some of the busiest buildings in a certain big city. That's also another way, but there are a lot of ways of spreading a virus. It depends on how much you want to go even into paranoia. The reason is, each and every virus that appeared, humanity has gone over it, and the problem is not that the mortality of the coronavirus is much smaller than the flu itself. It's just the fact that it can come back, and it can easily come back. But humanity has survived the plague, even if it's said to have wiped out like a third of Europe. So the reason is, why should we actually panic? Keep being, and keep staying introspective, keep reading and developing yourself, because this is just a little new distraction that will come, just like all the accidents, murders, and hurricanes and whatever you see on television, usually lower vibrational stuff to keep you worried, and worry and fear are very powerful attractors. It is a great means to control the reality if you can control the reality of the masses. If you have people speak about a certain thing on and on and on again, it actually influences the world because so many minds align themselves to make something more and more real. That is how you actually draw in a lot of entities and a lot of, let's say, different agendas into existence. That is how positive minds can actually shape the world, and that is how, let's say, lower functional minds will also place their impact on the world. Both are very important, don't take me wrong. Both are very important because both have the purpose of guiding humanity towards understanding that life happens for them, and everything that happens, irrespective of how many other animals, plants, and humans die, well, everything is just a lesson to be learned in this universe. Why worry about dying? In the end, we all will die sooner or later. Have fun, have an amusing day. Yeah, I don't know why I almost uh, mislipped this words annoying. It's kind of, all these news and all these things kind of become a bit annoying to me. So just try to be positive, stay positive, go beyond all these, and just try to find the inner of everything, the beyond of all possible distractions. And once you start doing this, you'll actually start amusing yourself that hey, life is actually too fun spend to be spent on such little distractions. Until next time, Ferengian Board signing out.